Okay, so maybe you're killing it with English grammar.
Yeah.
You're acing those quizzes, maybe even writing some pretty awesome emails in English.
Mm-hmm.
But when it comes to actually speaking it out loud,
Mm-hmm.
not quite as smooth.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
you look at Easy English Pod's 39-day fluency plan and you think like, can I really go from like these hesitant sentences to having like smooth conversations in just a little over a month?
Right.
And that's what we're diving into today to see if this plan really like holds the key to unlocking, your inner English speaker.
Mm-hmm.
And to help us kind of break this down, this pretty ambitious roadmap, we've got our language learning expert here with us.
Hello.
So is it truly possible to transform from you're a confident reader and writer at like an A2 level
Yeah.
to a fluent speaker in just 39 days?
It's definitely a bold claim, but
Yeah.
I think one thing to keep in mind is that the plan's definition of fluency is not about, sounding exactly like a BBC News reader or anything like that. It's about like confidently expressing your ideas and being able to navigate like everyday conversations.
Hmm.
And that's definitely doable, especially since you're already comfortable with like the written form of English.
Right.
So it's almost like you're building a bridge from the words that you know to the way that you speak.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
I see how having that like solid foundation in reading and writing could really like accelerate that whole speaking process.
Definitely.
Now, the plan mentions some interesting learning theories like comprehensible input and pushed output.
Mm-hmm.
I'll admit those sound kind of intimidating at first glance.
Mm-hmm.
Can you break those down for us and
Yeah.
explain how they kind of fit into this 39-day journey?
Absolutely. So comprehensible input is basically immersing yourself in English that you can understand.
Go.
So things like listening to podcasts, watching shows, maybe even like eavesdropping on conversations in a non-creepy way, of course.
Sure.
But it's about giving your brain a steady diet of English that it can actually process and understand.
So it's kind of like how a baby picks up a language, right? Like being surrounded by it.
Exactly. Yeah. It's all about that consistent exposure.
Okay, cool.
And then pushed output is where you kind of step out of that listener role and you become the speaker.
Mm.
So you're actively using the language, you're pushing yourself to like form sentences, make mistakes, and learn from them.
Okay.
And this plan really cleverly combines both of those things. So you're getting that balance of absorbing the language and then actually putting it into practice.
I'm starting to see how those pieces fit together. Like it's not just about learning vocabulary lists and grammar rules. It's about training your brain to think in English.
Exactly. Yeah.
Not bad.
So the plan kind of kicks off with week 1, activate what's, and this might sound kind of basic, but it's actually really brilliant in its simplicity.
Mhm.
Instead of like throwing you in the deep end, it focuses on building your confidence and establishing like strong listening habits right from the start.
So what's really fascinating is that it encourages learners to practice with familiar sentences, maybe from something they've already read.
Yeah.
Learn some simple conversation starters, and even sing along to like easy English songs.
Mm-hmm.
It seems almost deceptively simple.
Yeah.
What's the strategy behind that? Like starting with these seemingly really basic activities.
Well, it's all about laying a strong foundation.
Okay.
Think of it as like warming up your speaking muscles and getting your mouth and your ears accustomed to like the sounds and the rhythms of English.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, when you start with familiar material, it just helps build your confidence and makes the whole process feel less daunting, but
Yeah.
scary.
So it's about easing those anxieties and building like a solid base before moving on to like the bigger challenges.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like learning to walk before you can run.
Makes sense.
And speaking of taking things up a notch, week 2, expand with everyday patterns, is where things start to get really interesting.
Okay.
So we're going to move
Okay.
on to week 2 now.
Sounds good.
Week 2 really takes that foundation that you built in week 1 and adds some like practical tools to your fluency toolkit.
Mm-hmm.
This is where you'll start to incorporate reusable phrases, those everyday kind of building blocks of conversation.
Okay.
And you really ramp up your listening comprehension.
Gotcha. So we move beyond like single words and start putting together like more complex sentences and patterns.
Exactly, yeah.
I'm curious, what are some of the activities that the plan recommends for this stage?
So this is where the plan gets really creative.
Okay.
It suggests things like watching short English videos,
Mm-hmm.
maybe with subtitles at first, and then gradually like weaning yourself off of them as your comprehension improves.
Gotcha.
You'll also be learning like new phrases that you can use in everyday conversations.
Okay.
So things like ordering food, asking for directions, even just making small talk with a colleague or something.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And then there's this whole section on like talking to yourself
Oh, yeah.
in English,
Right.
which isn't that a bit strange?
Well, it might feel a bit silly at first, but it's actually an incredibly effective way to practice.
Okay.
Think of it as like having a built-in conversation partner that's always available.
Right.
So the plan encourages you to like narrate your day, describe your surroundings, or even have like imaginary conversations in English,
Okay.
all from the comfort of your own home.
That's actually a really cool idea. Like you removes that pressure of having to perform in front of someone else
Exactly.
and you can just like experiment freely.
Yeah, just play around with the language.
Week 3, simulate real conversations. Sounds like it takes things to like a whole new level.
It does, yeah.
So this is where you start to put all those building blocks together
Right.
and actually simulate those real world interactions.
hmm
What are some of the things that they suggest for this?
So they suggest things like summarizing podcasts that you've listened to,
Okay.
which forces you to process information and then express it in your own words. There's also a lot of emphasis on role playing,
Role playing.
different scenarios.
So that sounds super helpful. But some learners might not have a readily available speaking partner.
Right.
Does the plan offer anything for like those people who are flying solo?
It does, yeah. The plan is surprisingly adaptable.
Okay.
It actually recommends utilizing AI for language practice,
AI.
especially for those who don't have access to like regular speaking partners.
Interesting.
So you can engage in conversations with AI chatbots, practice your pronunciation, and even receive feedback on like your fluency and grammar.
AI for language
Yeah.
practice. That's pretty cool. But how does the plan make sure that learners still get that like real life interaction with other people?
Well, while AI can be a fantastic tool, the plan still really emphasizes the importance of connecting with real people as well.
Okay.
So it encourages learners to seek out language partners online or join conversation groups,
Okay.
whether in person or virtually.
Gotcha. So it's about striking that balance, like using AI to work on those specific skills and then actually putting them into practice with real humans. I like that approach now. Week 4, boost speed and confidence. Sounds like where we really kick things into high gear.
Yeah, this is where you really start to push those comfort zones and aim for that like smoother, faster flow of conversation.
Okay, how do they suggest doing that?
So the plan introduces techniques like shadowing native speakers,
Shadowing.
where you're basically listening and repeating almost simultaneously,
Right.
mimicking their pronunciation and intonation.
That sounds incredibly challenging.
It can be, yeah, but it's also really effective.
But are there any like modifications suggested for people who might find that like a little bit overwhelming at first?
Yeah, definitely. So the plan kind of offers several variations.
Okay.
You can start by shadowing short phrases
Yeah.
and gradually work your way up to longer sentences and then eventually like entire conversations.
Okay.
The key is to find a case that feels challenging but still achievable.
Right. It's about pushing those boundaries, but not to the point of like discouragement or anything.
Exactly. You want to stay motivated. The plan also suggests techniques like describing images or memories nonstop for a set amount of time,
Okay.
which forces you to think quickly and express yourself spontaneously.
That's a great way to get those mental gears turning and train your brain to access that vocabulary and grammar more quickly.
Exactly. It's all about building that automaticity.
And week 5 plus Risimit, Polish and test fluency, seems like it focuses on taking all those skills you've learned and like really making them your own.
Yeah, this phase is all about refinement, self-assessment, and confidently applying your fluency in a variety of situations.
Mhm.
So you'll be challenged to listen to podcasts at normal speed, engage in longer conversations on like more complex topics,
Okay.
and really hone in on those areas where you still feel a bit shaky.
So it's like a process of fine-tuning, taking those rough edges and polishing them into like a smooth, confident flow.
Exactly, yeah.
But with so much covered in just 5 weeks, how can learners actually like gauge their progress? How do they know if they're actually becoming more fluent?
That's where the plan's focused on self-evaluation comes in. It includes several self-tests that are kind of like milestones along your fluency journey.
Okay, that makes sense. What are some examples of these self-tests?
So, for example, on day 39, the plan suggests recording yourself speaking for 10 minutes on a topic that you're passionate about.
Okay.
This allows you to not only assess how smoothly and confidently you're speaking, but also to track your progress over time.
So it's like creating a before and after snapshot of your speaking journey.
Exactly.
What other self-assessment tools does the plan recommend?
It also suggests having a conversation with a native speaker
Okay.
and just seeing how easily you can understand them, respond naturally, and maintain that like comfortable flow of conversation.
So really putting those skills to the test in like a real-life setting and seeing how far you've come.
Exactly.
Before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I wanted to ask about some of the creative strategies that are mentioned in the plan.
Oh, yeah.
Things like tongue twisters and emotion practice.
Yeah.
What's the deal with that?
Well, these strategies might seem a bit lighthearted, but they're actually really brilliant for targeting specific aspects of spoken fluency.
Okay.
So tongue twisters, for example, are fantastic for improving your pronunciation and clarity.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah.
What other creative techniques like stand out to you?
The plan encourages learners to experiment with something called emotion practice,
Emotion practice.
which is essentially injecting different emotions into your speech.
Interesting.
So you might practice speaking angrily, happily, sadly, and so on.
So it's about adding like depth and nuance to your spoken English.
Exactly.
Going beyond just like the words themselves.
Yeah, bringing your personality into it.
And the plan even suggests things like pretending to be a TV host, interviewing yourself,
Yeah,
or having a debate with yourself where you argue both sides of an issue.
exactly. It's all about having fun with it.
That sounds hilarious.
It is, yeah.
Like a great way to practice like thinking on your feet and expressing different perspectives.
Yeah, and when you're having fun, you learn more effectively.
Yeah.
So it's all about making the process engaging and enjoyable.
Welcome back to our deep dive into Easy English Pod's 39-day English-speaking fluency plan. We've uncovered some pretty effective strategies and techniques.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, what really sets this plan apart from other language learning programs? Like what makes it so unique?
Well, one thing that really stands out to me is its emphasis on self-awareness.
Okay.
It's not just about following a rigid set of instructions.
Right.
It's about understanding your own strengths and weaknesses and your learning preferences so you can kind of personalize the journey to fluency.
That's a really important point. Like the plan provides the roadmap, but you get to choose, the scenic route or the express lane depending on what you need and what your goals are.
Exactly. Yeah.
I also noticed the plan stresses the importance of mindset and motivation.
Yeah.
It even suggests celebrating your progress along the way,
Oh, definitely.
which I love.
Yeah.
So important.
It is.
Because language learning can be challenging at times,
For sure.
so it's important to acknowledge those wins, no matter how big or small.
Yeah.
Like, how does the plan encourage learners to do that?
Well, it encourages them to reward themselves for reaching those milestones.
Okay.
So maybe you enjoy a favorite English movie
Okay.
or try a new recipe from an English cookbook,
Right.
or even just take a moment to appreciate how far you've come.
Mm.
It's all about recognizing those achievements.
Yeah, it's about finding those little moments of joy and satisfaction to keep you going.
Right.
Now, before we wrap up this deep dive, I want to circle back to something we talked about earlier.
Okay.
The idea of fluency as a journey, not a destination.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, this is such a crucial concept to remember.
Mm-hmm.
There's no finish line when it comes to language learning.
Right.
Even native speakers are constantly expanding their vocabulary, refining their pronunciation, and adapting their communication styles to different situations. So the real goal of this 39-day plan is to equip you with the tools and the confidence to become a lifelong learner of English.
So it's not about reaching some mythical level of perfection,
Yeah.
but it's more about embracing that process, being open to making mistakes,
Definitely.
and just constantly looking for ways to improve.
Exactly.
This has been such an insightful exploration of Easy English Pod's 39-day fluency plan. I feel like we only scratched the surface, but hopefully our listeners now have a better understanding of how this plan can help them unleash their inner English speaker and achieve those goals.
Yeah, I hope so too.
So before we go, any final words of wisdom for our listeners?
Well, I would say it all comes down to taking action.
Okay.
Don't just listen to this deep dive and then forget about it.
Right.
Choose one strategy that really resonated with you, maybe something we talked about today, and just start implementing it today.
Yeah, just take that first step.
Exactly. Every small step you take brings you closer to fluency.
And with that, we come to the end of our deep dive, listeners. I hope this exploration has sparked your curiosity and ignited your passion for this incredible journey of language learning. Remember, fluency is within your reach, and the path you take is yours to create.
Absolutely.
That's it for today. We'll see you in the next deep dive.